Hello lawn mowing people. What I'm going to be talking about is if I started a lawn mowing business today with absolutely nothing, what would I do? Now, what I'd like to say is initially it is possible to start a lawn mowing business with nothing, even with no equipment and even without a car. But before I tell you about that, I'd like to tell you a bit of a story about how I started a lawn mowing business back in Narrawahia back in 1999. What happened is through a series of events, I ended up with absolutely, I had nothing, basically, just the car, and I was shifting to a new town. I'd met this lady who had nothing either, and so we were both absolutely broke. And it was coming up to Christmas. I was doing a little bit of signwriting to earn some extra money, but everything was starting to close down and everybody was starting to close up for Christmas. And so what I figured is we actually had a little bit of money in the bank account that we were going to use to get us through Christmas. So I came up with this brilliant idea, and what I went out and did is, well, we didn't even actually have money. It was just available credit on a card. I went out and I got a lawnmower, I got a weed eater, and I got a blower. And then I came home and I showed my girlfriend, now my wife, and she was, well, she was she wasn't happy, and she said, "What on earth are we going to do now?" And I said to her, "Don't worry, I've got this sorted." So what I did is I went out and I got the phone book, and I pulled the phone book out. I started with I rang the first person. "Hi, my name's Stuart. I'm just ringing around to see if anybody would like a free quote on lawn mowing." And some of them said no, some of them said yes. And I found that if I stayed on the phone, I could usually get somebody saying yes every half hour to every hour. And so I could just get quotes like that. So what I'd do is I'd go on the phone, I'd ring around until I got a quote, I'd pack everything up, I'd go out, I'd do the job, I'd come back home, I'd get on the phone again. And I just did that. And I started at Christmas, and by the time we were about March or April next year, I was running a full-time business. And this is in a very, very small town of less than 10,000 people. So it just goes to show that you can do this kind of thing. Now, if you were going to do it today, it would be a little bit more difficult, but it still is doable. You can't use the phone book because the phone book doesn't really work anymore, not like that. Everybody's got mobile, so you don't know what area you're ringing, so you can't do that kind of thing unless you're going to focus solely on businesses, and that would be difficult. But I've got another technique that I used to use back then as well. What I used to do is if I got a lawn, then what I'd actually do is I'd actually go, instead of going back home and getting on the phone again, I'd start door knocking down that street. And I'd just knock on the door and say, "Hey, would you like a quote?" And I'd go around, I'd give them a quote, I'd write it on the back of a card, and these quotes just slowly trickled in and turned into jobs over time. So that was another way. And all it takes to knock on a door is just a little bit of courage. And you tend to find it's a numbers game. It's the same as the phone. I found if I made 30 odd calls, 40 calls, I could get a quote. And it's the same with knocking on doors. If you're prepared to knock on 40, 50 doors, then you'll get a job. Now, if I was starting with absolutely nothing and I didn't even have a vehicle, basically what I'd do is I wouldn't bother trying to get lawns or anything like that. I'd just go down my street and I'd knock on doors and I'd offer to do gardening work and cleanups and things like that, because the thing is that you don't need any equipment to do that kind of work, and you can just go out and do it. And if you need normally anything that you need for that kind of cleanup, the client's got anyway. They'll probably have a rake, and they'll probably have a spade and a few other bits and pieces like that. So you can just go out there and you can actually earn really, really good money cleaning up gardens. So if you were going to focus on gardens and then just door knock and do that for 40 hours a week, you'll find that you'll soon have a fairly steady income. And once you have that steady income, then you can go out there and you can start buying things like you can get things like get a car on hire purchase, get a lawnmower, get a blower, get a weed eater, and then you can start getting the equipment that you need in order to start a lawn mowing business. So that's just one way that you can do it with absolutely nothing, and you could actually go out and you could earn, you know, couple of $100 just today. If it's in the morning, you could go out and you could find a job by lunchtime and go spend the afternoon doing it, and then just have money at the end of the day. So it's something it's something actionable that you can do right now. And basically, you'll find that hard work pays off, and everybody has to start somewhere. And even a huge oak tree starts one day as a tiny little acorn. So that's all I've got to say today. And so get out there, have fun, mow lawns, and happy lawn mowing, people.